Have you ever had a thought that just would not go away? It's like it was after you, like it was haunting you, waking and sleeping. And you knew that thought was a lie, just meaning you knew it was not true. But still, for whatever reason, you just could not exorcise it from your mind or imagination. If so, you are not alone. You are in very good company, and I'm with you. In our last session, I told you the story of Evagrius of Ponticus and the desert fathers and mothers of the ancient church. Their conviction, as strange as it sounds to our modern ears, was that thoughts that are lies were often more than just thoughts. It's like they were animated by a dark kind of energy, a demonic force. And their conviction was that the devil's primary assault on our soul is through our mind and our thought life. Now, that's an interesting take, but can it be found anywhere in the teachings of Jesus? I would argue yes. In John 8, Jesus says this very stark rebuke to the Pharisees, the kind of religious leaders of the day. You belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies. Notice a few things from Jesus. One, for Jesus, there is a devil. The devil wasn't a myth or a superstitious holdover from a pre-scientific age or the hallucination of an overactive kind of imagination. No, for Jesus, the devil was a immaterial but real intelligence who was the evil behind so much of the evil in our soul and our society. Jesus often calls him the ruler of this world. For Jesus, the secular theories of evil that attempt to kind of explain it as just a lack of education or inadequate wealth redistribution or even the abuse of power all fall short of explaining reality. The only way to make sense of evil and all its malevolence, from large kind of global systems of evil to much smaller human scale evil, such as our inability to stop our self-destructive drinking or hold back a biting comment toward our spouse. The only way to make sense of that is to see a kind of animating force behind it, adding gas to the proverbial fire, dividing humanity against itself in a kind of societal suicide. Secondly, for Jesus, the devil's end goal is to spread death, or in Jesus' language, quote, he was a murderer from the beginning. What is a murderer? Someone whose intent is to end life, to stamp it out. Jesus goes on to say, the thief, another name for the devil, comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they, and that's you and me, may have life and have it to the full. Steal, kill, destroy. For Jesus, the devil is like the archetype of a villain in a movie who's just hell bent on destruction. Like he just wants to watch the world burn. His motto is just tear it all down. Wherever he finds life, he tries to stamp it out. Beauty, deface it. Love, corrupt it. Unity, fragment it into a million pieces. Human flourishing, push it to anarchy or tyranny. Either one will do. He is anti-life and pro-death. Jesus, on the other hand, is the author of life itself and an advocate for all that is good and beautiful and true, more specifically for love. God is love in the teachings of Jesus, and the devil is in rebellion against all that is God, meaning his intent is to wreck love. One relationship, one community or church, one nation, one generation at a time. That's what he is always working to do, to wreck love. Third, the devil's means is lies. Did you catch that in Jesus' teaching? Jesus calls the devil the father of lies. Then Jesus has that great line about how when he lies, he speaks his native language. Okay, hold up for a minute. That is not how most of us think about our fight, so to speak, with the devil, or what has come to be called spiritual warfare. Sadly, much of what passes as a theology of spiritual warfare is at best conjecture, if not paranoia or superstition. I can't tell you how often I hear people blame the devil for what is likely just bad luck or a coincidence, or frequently their own foolishness. My wife and I got in a fight on the way to church. It was the devil. Maybe, but really the devil, the ruler of this world, came to attack your minivan? Maybe. But isn't, if you're honest, it a bit more likely that you were just in a hurry and a bit stressed out and made a rash statement that caused your partner pain? Whenever people blame the devil for silly things, it makes it hard not just to write the devil off entirely and kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. In C.S. Lewis' masterpiece of satire, The Screwtape Letters, he writes this in the introduction: "There are two equal and opposite errors into which our race can fall about the devils. One is to disbelieve in their existence. The other is to believe and to feel an excessive and unhealthy interest in them. They themselves are equally pleased by both errors and hail a materialist or a magician with the same delight." As easy as it is to kind of poke fun at other people, the danger for most of us is not that we see a demon behind every single bush. It's more likely that we just ignore him entirely. But let's say we take the idea of the devil seriously. We take Jesus at his word. Still, what comes to mind for a lot of us when we think of the devil or spiritual warfare is, I don't know, something like an exorcism, or a disease, or a tsunami, or hurricane, or some kind of a natural disaster, or maybe a horrifying poltergeist, or a child's nightmare. All of those examples have legitimacy. In fact, after a cursory read of the four Gospels, that is what I would expect Jesus to talk about. But, and this is fascinating, in Jesus' most in-depth teaching on the devil in all four Gospels, John 8, he doesn't mention any of it. There's no demon in his teaching, no illness, no tragedy, no nightmare. Instead, it is an intellectual debate with the thought leaders of his day about truth and lies. All of the other stuff, demonization, illness, wreaking havoc in the natural order, scaring little kids with bad dreams, is biblical, and we need to take it seriously. But Jesus sees our primary war against the devil as a fight to believe truth over lies. Of course, this raises the question, as ancient as Pontius Pilate and yet a staple of postmodernism: what is truth? Okay, just give me a few minutes to talk philosophy, and then we'll land the plane. The simplest definition of truth I know is reality, just meaning that which corresponds to reality. Truth is what we can rely on as real. The ground I'm standing on is real. The chair you are sitting on is real. The device you're watching this on is real. And the best definition I know of reality is what you run into when you're wrong. If I say, I believe I can fly, and walk off the roof of my house, reality is what I run into a few seconds later. Hence a cliche like the cold, hard truth, or a dose of reality. Now, to just go a layer deeper, we all live from what psychologists call mental maps, reference points by which we navigate the world. We have literal mental maps, such as the route from our home or apartment to our job or church or whatever. For me, as I think about driving to work, take Burnside, across the river, turn left on 21st, go up to Tillamook, you're there. If our mental maps are true, meaning if they correspond to reality, then we get in our cars or step onto the bus or take our bicycle, and X minutes later, we arrive at our destination. But if our mental maps are not true, if they don't correspond to reality, if they are off even a little bit, then we end up lost in the dystopian wasteland of bad cell coverage and glitchy Google Maps, which is a terrifying place to be. In the same way that we have mental maps for how to get to work or school or our favorite coffee shop, we also have mental maps for all of our life. Mental maps for money and sexuality and power, for how to do relationships or romance or marriage or parenting or church or even for God. Our mental maps are made up of a collection of ideas. Ideas are assumptions about reality. They're kind of working theories, usually based on some kind of evidence or experience about how life actually works. Or in more American language, what will make us happy? And our ideas kind of all come together into a mental map by which we navigate life. We tracking? Okay, great. Now, here is where it gets interesting. Stay with me. Relevance is coming, I promise. The wonder of the human person is our ability to hold in our minds ideas that correspond to reality and ideas that don't correspond to reality. Put another way, to envision what is and what isn't. This is what enables the miracle of human civilization. We can envision the unreality, just meaning something that does not exist, of an ideal society in our minds, and then we can work together to bring it into reality. We can make a village, and then a city, and then a nation, and then a civilization. In fact, this is what enables all human creativity, from writing a novel to baking a cake, to programming an app, to building a home, to starting a business, or just playing a new riff on your electric guitar. We have the capacity to hold in kind of our mental docks something that does not yet exist, and then through our bodies, bring that unreality to life. You thought you were just baking muffins. Actually, you are exercising your human capacity to take an idea in your mind and with your body create a new reality. It's pretty rad. Now, here's the problem. Our capacity to hold unreality in our minds is our genius, but it's also our Achilles heel. Because not only can we imagine unreality, we can also come to believe in it. We can put our faith, in more Christian language, in ideas that are untrue, or worse, that are full-on lies from the enemy. As the philosopher Dallas Willard once said, we truly live at the mercy of our ideas. Because the ideas that we believe in our minds and then let into our bodies give shape to the trajectory of our souls. Put another way, they shape how we live, and as a result, who we become. And the most important thing in life is who we become and who we become that person with. When we believe truth, that is, ideas that correspond to reality, we show up to reality, show up to God's world and our life in it in such a way that we flourish and thrive. We show up to our bodies and our gender and our sexuality, to our interpersonal relationships. And above all, we show up to God himself in a way that is congruent with the Creator's wisdom and good intentions for his creation. As a result, life is still a struggle, but for the most part, we are happy. But when we believe lies, ideas that are not congruent with the reality of God's wise and loving design, and then tragically, when we open our bodies to those lies and we let them into our muscle memory and we allow that kind of cancer of lies to infect our soul, we then live at odds with reality. And as a result, we just struggle to thrive because reality does not adjust itself to our illusions. This is why Jesus comes as a rabbi or a teacher, to give us new mental maps to reality, to teach us how to navigate our relationship to God, to each other, and to our own soul. Jesus said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." But put that in the inverse. He was simultaneously saying that we're in bondage to lies. Lies, I would argue, from the devil himself. There are lies out there in the culture wars from either the left or the right, and I reference quite a few in the book. But even more importantly, there are lies that are bipartisan in nature, lies in here, in our own mind and our memory, lies that we picked up in our family of origin, or through a trauma or some kind of a traumatic event or an experience, good or bad, lies that if we let them play in our mind, if we let that video run in our imagination, and God forbid, if we come to believe those lies, and if we start to live as if they are true, they will sabotage our spiritual formation into the image of Jesus. To apprentice under Rabbi Jesus is to enroll in his kind of master class of life. But it's more than that. It's also to join in a war to believe truth over lies, to every day take up your cross, not to inflict violence, but to die to those own lies in your mind and to come to believe truth. We do this through practices or spiritual disciplines in more classic language. Things like reading scripture and silence and solitude and stillness and Sabbath, where we just present our mind and our body before God and his truth. And we give the deepest part of who we are to the deepest part of who God is in prayerful trust. In closing, ideas only have power over us when we believe them. We hear all sorts of ridiculous ideas every day, and they have zero effect on us because we don't let them into our mind. We don't let them into our body. We just ignore them. So the question is, whose mental maps do you navigate reality by? Whose ideas do you trust in? Who do you put your faith in? Faith is not a religious thing or a Christian thing. It's a human thing. The question is not, do you have faith? It's who or what do you put your faith in? What are you believing? Are you currently believing any lies? Lies about who God is, about who you are, about what the good life actually is. The invitation of Jesus is, in his own words, to repent and believe, which I love to paraphrase as to rethink everything you think you know is true and put your trust in Jesus as reality and his teachings to lead you and guide you to what he called life.